their genuine thrill of being able to do something they've only dreamed about having the opportunity. But he's exceptional in the sense, for me, of
a television angel, a timeless beauty icon. And the woman who once made millions of American men freeze in front of the screen with just a glance over her shoulder, her golden hair flowing, and a smile both sweet and sharp as a knife. But it was also this woman, Cheryl Ladd, who had to live like a glowing doll in a glass cage. No anger, no weakness, no resistance, just beauty and silence. For 50 years, she not only kept these names in her heart, she lived with silent wounds, never shared with anyone. Those men had plunged her into a nightmare that no one but her knew about. One man once forced her to film a love scene when she had just miscarried. Another secretly cut her dialogue scenes to give his girlfriend more screen time. And one man, Cheryl said, "I once dreamed of stabbing him right backstage. But I chose to smile and keep acting." Why did Cheryl remain silent for decades? Who was the one who once called her an angel, but secretly turned her into a prize display object? And which familiar name in American television will be exposed next? Right now, you are about to hear a story that has never been mentioned in the press. Never spoken on any talk show, a story that only Cheryl, who has endured the pain, can tell. Stay tuned, because in just 30 seconds, you will know the first name on the list of 5 men Cheryl Ladd hates most in life. Like the video, follow the channel, because behind the television lights are betrayals that even angels shed tears over. And don't forget to leave a comment. Who do you think is the one who hurt Cheryl the most?
A profound place in myself to speak from as a mother and in.
If she had to start with one person, it would be the one who lay next to her every night, but was the first to push her into the hell of silence, David Ladd. They met when Cheryl was still an innocent blonde girl, seeking roles in cheap soap commercials. David, the son of the legendary Alan Ladd, had charm, a Hollywood lineage, and a voice as warm as brandy. He made Cheryl feel chosen, loved, as if she were the only real person in the world. They married in 1973. A quiet wedding full of hope. Cheryl believed, if you love someone without needing the spotlight, you'll have a real life. But she was wrong. The spotlight wasn't outside the home. It was in the eyes of her husband every time she walked out the door with makeup that looked better than yesterday. When Cheryl became Chris Monroe in Charlie's Angels, the fan frenzy every Thursday night hit like a tsunami, dragging their marriage along with it. David grew distant. No more hugs after filming. No more dinners. No more goodnight kisses. Only jealous looks and sarcastic questions. Who are you working with today? Have you slept with him? Cheryl said, I used to think that if I loved my husband wholeheartedly, had his children, skipped meals to stay in shape, he would understand. But no, the more I shined, the more he tried to turn off the lights around me. The breaking point came in 1979, when Cheryl took a role representing a luxury perfume brand. David opposed. Why? Because Cheryl's face appeared on the same billboard as a young actor. I couldn't decide my own image. I was his wife, but was treated like an asset that could lose its value. Afterward, Cheryl miscarried. Right in the most stressful period. She still had to shoot a love scene for the new episode of Charlie's Angels, because the contract didn't allow for delays. David didn't come to the set. No texts. Didn't ask a single question. Have you ever stayed silent in a relationship, just because you thought silence would keep everything from breaking? If so, leave a comment, because your story might make someone feel less alone. Cheryl filmed that scene in silence, with only the director and the lights. When the camera hit her face, the tears were real, but everyone thought it was just acting. I never cried because of the scene. I cried because of the man who swore he would be there, when I needed him most. They divorced in 1980. The media called it a peaceful breakup. But Cheryl knew, I walked out of that marriage with beautiful legs, but a broken heart. And that tear was never sewn back together. David broke Cheryl with his silent fits of rage, while the second man pushed her into a nameless cold zone, where there was no betrayal, but also no love. Brian Russell, the music producer, second husband, and the one who once told Cheryl, I'll never hurt you, because I'll never get close enough to touch. People often think betrayal is a painful cut. But for Cheryl, Brian's prolonged indifference was what made her bleed every day, and no one knew. They came together after the first breakup. Cheryl needed a shoulder, a man mature and gentle enough to start over. Brian had it all: a calm gaze, a voice as warm as a feather pillow, and hands that knew exactly when to place them on her waist when she felt the coldest. At the beginning of their relationship, he texted every morning, left little notes in Cheryl's purse: "Don't forget, you're not alone." But the man who wrote that left Cheryl alone in every important moment of her life. When Cheryl lost her second child, Brian was in New York. She called. He didn't answer. She texted. He only replied, "I'll call you back later." No arms. No presents. Only an emptiness, and a silence that hammered her heart like a hammer. He didn't hit me. He didn't curse at me. But he turned all my emotions into something annoying. I cried, he stayed silent. I was angry, he went outside. I needed him, he disappeared. Cheryl once stood on stage, performing before 5,000 audience members, with 12-inch heels and smudged mascara. No one saw her tears, because the lights were too bright. But when she stepped into the dressing room, she quietly took off her headphones, looked at the message: "Good luck with the performance. I'm in a meeting. 1 year, 2 years, then 10 years. Cheryl gradually learned to place her own hand on her shoulder. And when someone asked, "How's Brian?" she just smiled, "He's fine. As for my heart, I'm not so sure." I once said, "I'd rather be betrayed than live with a man where, every morning when you wake up, you don't know if you're his wife, or just your own shadow." Cheryl didn't divorce. No drama. But she slowly died in that marriage, one night at a time. And you? Have you ever loved someone who didn't hit you, didn't leave, but still made you break apart day by day? Leave a comment, because sometimes, just speaking out, is the first step to being heard. Brian was the cold, persistent killer of Cheryl's heart, while Aaron Spelling was the glittering gilded cage, where she was worshipped like a goddess, but trapped like a doll with no right to resist. Brian was the cold, lingering force that killed Cheryl's heart, while Aaron Spelling was the glittering gilded cage, where she was worshipped like a goddess but trapped like a doll with no right to resist. I used to be an angel. But an angel in captivity, in a bikini and a 3-page contract with no room for resistance. Aaron Spelling, one of the most powerful names in American television during the 70s. The man who turned a blonde girl into a national phenomenon. And also the man who built paradise, with chains. He didn't shout. He didn't curse. He didn't touch Cheryl in the dirty ways Hollywood often does. But because of that, everything became colder. I had to sign off on every frame. From the height of my shoes, the length of my skirt, to my measurements every week, everything was reported to his office. Cheryl wasn't allowed to gain weight. She had no right to refuse a sex scene. She couldn't speak up about her salary. And absolutely, she was not allowed to fall in love with anyone on set. One time, she was only 15 minutes late due to traffic. The consequence? She was publicly reprimanded in front of the entire crew. Another time, she suggested changing the camera angle because the light was shining directly into her eyes. The director said, "Do you think your opinion is more important than Aaron's?" He didn't need to lock me in a room. Because I was already scared enough to lock myself in. In 1980, Cheryl considered leaving Charlie's Angels. But Aaron threatened to cancel all her advertising contracts and halt the special program planned for her. The reason? Because angels don't get opinions. One day, I looked in the mirror and saw a beautiful woman, but no soul. She still filmed. She still smiled. She still tossed her golden hair in the brilliant lights. But inside, was a Cheryl who didn't know who she was anymore. And what about you? Have you ever been praised, but felt like you were living in someone else's gilded cage? Leave a comment. Because sometimes, your story can help someone escape control they can't name. When power controls your body, you still have a chance to rise up. But when the disappointment comes from the person you trust to be your safe haven, that's the fall that makes you too afraid to stand up again. David Doyle, the actor who played Bosley, was the friendly face, the TV dad everyone trusted. He always smiled, always kind, always listened. Cheryl once thought, if anyone on the set truly cared about me, it would surely be him. Until one evening. After filming. The makeup room was empty except for the two of them. Cheryl was removing her false eyelashes when he walked up behind her. He didn't touch her, didn't make any advances. Just one sentence, short, simple, whispered right by her ear. But that sentence was like a thin knife, cutting away all her feelings of safety. I never tell that story. I don't need to. Because those who have been hurt will immediately understand that feeling. Cheryl didn't yell. She didn't jump up. She didn't react like in the movies. She just froze, pulled her hand away from the makeup table, stood up, and left, as if staying for one more second would make her cry. And she knew, those tears weren't worth falling in front of him. I used to think women are only afraid of being touched. But no. There are words, even without touching the skin, that still make you feel like you've been stripped bare. From that day, Cheryl still acted with David. Still smiled on screen. But her gaze was no longer the gaze of a little sister for her close brother. It was a silent look, given to someone who had shattered trust with a word that could never be taken back. And what hurt her the most was that after everything passed, he still acted as though nothing had ever happened. And what about you? Have you ever trusted someone, to the point of not being cautious? And then one day, just one word, one moment, was enough to make you realize you had placed your trust in the wrong person? Leave a dot in the comments if you understand that feeling. Because sometimes, you don't need to share the details. Just a dot is enough for someone to know they're not alone. But there are some pains that don't come from deception or betrayal. They come from a look, a word, a person who makes you feel you're not enough just for being yourself. The last man on this list didn't touch me, but he made me fall. They were filming together for a telethon, a program where stars appear for charity, but the pressure and stage lights were no different from an underground competition between fame and resilience. Robert Conrad, that steel man of American television, an icon of a bygone masculine generation, cold, dominant, and always with the right to judge women. In one scene, Cheryl forgot a line. A very small moment. But among the crew staring at her, only one person made her feel shattered. No shouting. No cursing. Robert just walked over, leaned close to her ear, and said softly, "Don't try to be a star. You're not Farrah. Nothing more is needed." That sentence, sharper than a knife. Colder than the stage lights. Cheryl stayed silent. Didn't resist. Didn't explain herself. She withdrew from the project a few days later. No lawsuits. No name-calling. She left only one line in her later memoir. Sometimes, men don't need to push you down. They just need to stand there and watch you fall. Robert didn't do anything wrong, on paper. But it was that type of masculinity, the one that didn't need to touch, that made so many women live with the feeling, for them, I'll never be enough, just because I'm not someone else. 5 names. 5 faces that walked into Cheryl's life as colleagues, lovers, gentlemen. But left behind wounds, invisible on the skin, yet bleeding in her memory. None of them ever had to shout in her face. None of them had to lay a hand on her. They just needed to whisper, stay silent, or just be themselves, and the whole world would be on their side. I tell these things, not for revenge. I tell them because there are so many women who have stayed silent, swallowed their tears, just because they were afraid of being called weak. If you've ever walked out of a room, swallowing shame that no one could see, if you've ever heard a sentence and couldn't forget it for years, leave a dot in the comments. A dot is enough to say that you understand and that you're still here. Still standing strong. That's a victory. And if you believe these truths deserve to be heard, and should not be buried under the stage lights, like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Because Hollywood isn't just full of angels with radiant smiles. It also has women who have fallen to the bottom and still know how to soar back, with their own voices. The moment Laura Pulver stepped out completely naked in front of Sherlock Holmes in a scandal in Belgravia, 2012, instantly sparked one of the biggest controversies in BBC television history. The scene, which only took a few seconds to complete, shocked the audience and the media. Some called it a shocking stunt, an insult to the Conan Doyle spirit, and parents even complained that it was not suitable for family audiences. But others praised it as the pinnacle of visual art, where Irene Adler not only stripped naked, but also stripped bare her power and intelligence. Laura Pulver responded frankly, "It's not erotic, it's power." She had complete faith in the crew and affirmed that the scene was an indispensable piece to portray a seductive, cold Irene who controlled everything, including Sherlock. Despite its controversy, the scene has become Sherlock's most iconic and daring, opening up a profound conversation about the line between art and provocation. And what do you see in Irene's gaze? Amidst the bright lights of Hollywood, there is a woman who always makes the public both fascinated and curious, and that is Laura Pulver. Talented, charming, and especially secretive to the point of being almost inviolable. Behind the halo and daring roles, Lara's private life is a mysterious maze that no one holds the key to. Her most famous love affair with Josh Dallas, the actor of Once Upon a Time, once made fans crazy because they were so beautiful together. But then, that love affair suddenly broke up, and a series of rumors exploded. Could it be that Ginnifer Goodwin, Josh's co-star, was the reason Lara was hurt? Josh quickly held hands with Ginnifer, while Lara remained completely silent. No explanation. No response. Not a word of complaint. That silence, instead of soothing, made the thirst for information more intense than ever. But Laura Pulver didn't need to speak, she let her eyes and career answer. Elegant, mysterious, strong, she is the perfect definition of a star that we can't take our eyes off, even though we don't know much about her.
After the breakups and silence that made many people curious, Laura Pulver suddenly stunned Hollywood when she got married to actor Raza Jaffrey in 2014. No need for noise, no need to show off, just the look between them was enough to make people believe in a deep and mature love. Raza, a familiar face in Homeland, is not only a husband, but also a companion, a solid support for Lara in the most difficult times. But behind that beautiful picture are a series of challenges that are not easy to overcome. Both are international artists, living between films, stages, and different time zones. There are months when they only see each other through the phone screen. There are times when a quick hug at the airport is all. However, Lara once said, "Trust is the true foundation of marriage." And they have maintained that foundation, despite all the distance. Amidst the stormy world of showbiz, Lara and Raza's love still stands firm, without the need for spotlights or flowery words. Just look at them holding hands on the red carpet, and you will understand, true love, even though silent, is still brighter than any halo. When mentioning Laura Pulver, people will think of the name that evokes sharp eyes and an aura that makes even Sherlock Holmes speechless, and at one point, Hollywood turned its back on her. Although she conquered millions of viewers through the legendary role of Irene Adler in Sherlock, 2012, Lara was repeatedly rejected cruelly just because she was too bold. An artistic nude scene, which once made a legend, became a black mark that caused her to be removed from the list of candidates for a major blockbuster project. The reason? Too sexy, too dangerous, too unsafe for the traditional image. In the UK, her cold beauty and attractive demeanor became a barrier. Directors wanted a gentle, female lead, but Lara was too outstanding, too different. Even when appearing in famous works like Edge of Tomorrow, she was still overshadowed by other A-list names. Once, a leading action role was almost hers, until another star stepped in. But Lara never gave up. Each time she was rejected, she came back stronger, turning the prejudice into motivation. Hollywood may have wavered, but audiences did not, remembering her as an underrated but unforgettable icon. Before stunning the world in Sherlock, Laura Pulver was a name that took the Broadway stage by storm. Her passion for the stage since her youth led her to the role of Rebecca in the musical Parade, one of the most controversial and weighty roles at that time. When her name was announced, public opinion was in an uproar. Too immature, lack of emotional depth, not up to par, a series of criticisms covered art forums. People did not hesitate to compare her to the legends who had played this role before. But Lara did not give up. She threw herself into frantic practice, analyzing every psychological nuance of Rebecca, honing every note, every look on stage. And then, When the lights came on, Lara stepped out, no longer the controversial actress, but a completely new Rebecca, fierce, profound, and haunting. That resilience not only changed the audience's perspective, but also forced critics to bow their heads and admit, Lara Pulver is not just an actress, but an artistic warrior. And Parade is the first brilliant battlefield she conquered. Lara Pulver is not only a talented actress with a look that can shake the screen, but also the center of dramatic coworker relationships behind the scenes. Everything exploded after Sherlock, when she played Irene Adler, the only woman who made Sherlock Holmes silent. Her chemistry with Benedict Cumberbatch made the audience crazy, but behind the lens, rumors of disagreements were rife. Some said Lara wanted Irene to be fiery and bold, while Benedict pursued moderation, making the atmosphere on set as tense as a string. They never confirmed it, but that silence only made the public more curious. Not only Cumberbatch, Lara also created strong connections with Tom Riley and Blake Ritson in Da Vinci's Demons, especially Riley, who once made fans doubt their burning chemistry in real life. She also has a close friendship with Richard Armitage, Spooks, one of the few male colleagues who always shows Lara absolute respect. Strong, fierce and fearless, Lara Pulver is the kind of artist who makes every collaboration a talking point. For her, art is a battlefield, and every collaboration is a game of uncompromising competition. Not a name that often appears in sensational newspapers, but every time it is mentioned, it makes Hollywood tremble. Without tricks, without noise, Lara entered the hearts of the audience with her cold eyes and haunting roles, especially Irene Adler, the woman who dared to challenge Sherlock Holmes in the classic film. But that very image became a double-edged sword. The uncompromising nude scene in Sherlock sparked a wave of controversy, art or trick. Sexy or offensive? Lara did not justify, just coldly replied, "That's the character. Not me." And that was enough to divide public opinion. Not stopping there, her private life is also an unpredictable maze. Her lightning marriage to Josh Dallas ended in suspicious silence. Then she suddenly married Raza Jaffrey, a secretive person like herself. This couple always appeared with smiles, but the underground rumors said otherwise. Lara Pulver is not ostentatious, not compromising. Every role, every behind-the-scenes story is like an unsolved mystery. And Hollywood, whether it wants it or not, cannot stop following this mysterious woman.